Alright, hello everyone. So here we are again in the another biological concept video. So we will go in this video we were going to discuss the two types of reproduction. We have the sexual and asexual reproduction. Now in this particular session we will going to discuss the disadvantages and the advantages of each type of reproduction. Okay. So with that, let's start. Alright, so we will go first with the asexual reproduction, since this is the most or the one of the this is the most primitive type of reproduction, and aside from that, it is the simplest form of reproduction among organisms. Alright, so what is asexual reproduction? So this is a type of reproduction that doesn't require gametes. So as we all know, if you recall your grade 7, if you recall your 7th grade science, gametes are sex cells. Right? So these are sex cells, and there are only two sex cells. So we have the sperm and the egg cell. Alright, so these are the gametes. Now, in asexual reproduction, gametes is not needed in order for an organism to reproduce. And most of the organism here undergoes by fission or splitting of the cell, or splitting the cell splits after mitosis. So as you recall your 8th grade science, mitosis is a kind of cell division. It is a type of cell division. This is a type of cell division in which the parent cell produces a daughter cell which has an exact number of chromosomes. Let me put it this way. If the parent is diploid, if it undergoes mitosis, it will produce its daughter cell. Then the daughter cell will contain still haploid number of chromosomes. Alright, so that is mitosis. Now, in asexual reproduction, the organism that undergo asexual reproduction follows the pattern of mitosis. Alright, so and aside from that, what the daughter cell is an exact copy of its parent cell. Alright, so why asexual reproduction? So what is the advantage of asexual reproduction over the other one? So in this case, asexual reproduction doesn't need or it can conserve energy during reproduction. So you only need one individual. To reproduce, and as it reproduces, you conserve energy while doing reproduction. So you don't need to invest a lot of energy in order to do that, or in order to reproduce. Alright, so another one is asexual reproduction has no genetic change. Alright, so it has no genetic change. Now, this is advantageous if the environment is good. So if the environment is somehow good to the organism, or should I say advantageous to the organism, then therefore the genetic change is not applicable. Alright, so no genetic change happens in asexual reproduction. Next one, all individuals are producing offspring. So meaning to say, if gametes are not needed here, so therefore the organism will reproduce, and it doesn't require a male or a female organism in order for an organism to reproduce. So only one organism will reproduce its own offspring. Next one, in terms of efficiency in passing genes, so since this is a fast type of reproduction, so it is efficient to pass genes from the parent to the daughter cell. So meaning to say, it is somehow faster than the sexual reproduction in terms of passing of genes. Alright, so this time we will talk about the disadvantage. So the disadvantage of asexual reproduction is no recombination of genes. So although the genes are transferred or passed to another offspring in such case. So in this particular type of reproduction, the disadvantage here is no recombination of genes. Why no recombination of genes? Because you just the daughter cell will just only copy what is on the parent cell. So meaning to say, you just need one individual. And whatever trait that the individual has will be copied by the offspring. Alright, so meaning to say that there's no changes. So if there's no changes, so therefore there's no recombination of genes happened along the way. Alright, so that is a sexual disadvantage. And another disadvantage of asexual reproduction is that the population tends to be static. What do you mean by that? Which means the population doesn't change. Alright, so the genes in the population doesn't change. So meaning to say, if one instance or a chemical, for example, try to kill that particular population, they will likely to be exterminated. Why? Because they have the same set of genes in their body. So meaning to say that the population does not change after all. After all, the genes here is the genes from the parent to the daughter cell are very similar. Now, unless the environment is beneficial to that organism, then therefore, it's okay for the population to be genetically static. But if it's not, like for example, a bacteria, alright, a bacteria subjected to antibacterial drug, for example. So if that bacteria undergo asexual reproduction and then they do not have any protection to a certain antibacterial drug, then all that bacteria will all of that population of that particular bacteria will die out of that antibacterial drug. So therefore, they will not be able to create something that they will let them be protected to that particular change in the environment. Alright, so that's the reason why asexual population is a disadvantage in terms of changes in the genes. Alright, so now there are several kinds of asexual reproduction. So first, in a unicellular organism, you know already what is a unicellular organism. So from the word itself, one cell, so one-celled organism, like the bacteria. So all bacteria undergo fission. So what it does is, if this is the bacteria and this is its chromosome, it just split itself into two. Then the two will further divide again into two. So alright, so in a few moments, so we have now four bacteria over here. And what do you notice? What do you notice here? So the daughter cells are the same with the parent cell. Alright, so there's no changes, or there are no changes in the genes whatsoever. Alright, so example here are the bacteria. And some unicellular organism like protists, alright, so some unicellular organism like the protists undergo a similar way of reproduction. Alright, next one is budding. Alright, so budding is also an asexual reproduction, but it is done by some multicellular or all multicellular organism. So example here is the hydra. So as you can see here, a bud is starting to form into the body or in the body of a particular animal called hydra. So this is a hydra. This is a kind of nidarian which lives in the bottom of the ocean. Alright, so as you can see here, the bud starts to grow on its body, and eventually it will develop into a new offspring, or into a new or same offspring, the hydra, and it will split off after days of development. So as it split off, and then it will be developed into become something like this, similar to its parent. So that is budding. And other parasites like the tapeworm undergo budding as well. So in a tapeworm, That's the reason why it is called tapeworm. It is made up of several segments. Then when you cut those segments will become a new tapeworm. Alright, so if you have 3 segments that is separated here, then therefore you have 3 tapeworm that will be formed. So that's the reason why in this particular picture, in this picture right here, so the tapeworm can reproduce fast enough to accumulate inside the host body. Alright, next one. Another kind of asexual reproduction in some multicellular organism is called the gemulation. Now, the one that performs the gemulation is the sponge. Alright, so the parent somehow releases a mass of cell or a group of cell which is no more than or it is similar to its composition. So all the DNA structure and everything, the texture and everything, the color is similar to its parent. Then that mass of cell will float around the water, or it will follow the water current and then will attach itself to a rock. Then it will develop to a new sponge. So this mass of cell that we have right here, so this mass of cell that we have right here is somehow will become a new sponge. Alright, so with that, next one. Alright, so another type of asexual reproduction is what they call fragmentation. Alright, so what is fragmentation? So it's a multicellular organism. It performs what they call fragmentation. Example here, the flatworms that we have right here. So the flatworms are basically what fragmentation does is the parent. This is the parent body. This one, the whole thing, right, that we have right here. Once it breaks off. Yan, so it breaks off into 3 pieces. So therefore, these 3 pieces that we have right here, this one, and the second one, then the third one. So these 3 pieces will undergo it will grow and it will develop to become another flatworm. So basically we have now 3 flatworms here out of 1 flatworm. Alright, so this is what they call fragmentation. Alright, so there we go. Now, in some multicellular organism, there is what they call parthenogenesis. So, in parthenogenesis, what it does is the females will produce eggs even without being fertilized. So, those are some instances that you don't need males in order to produce an egg. For example, ants and bees, also the termites. And so the termites undergo what they call parthenogenesis. Alright, so yeah, that's how they reproduce. Now in plants, what we have right there is that is man-made. Alright, man-made way of reproducing or a fruit without any fertilization happening. For example, if you are familiar with seedless grape, seedless orange, or something like that, alright, so those particular fruits are not product of fertilization because they don't have seeds. Alright, so they are a product of a man-made intervention that allows the fruit or the flower to be developed into a fruit without any fertilization at all. Alright, so that's how seedless fruits came to be. Alright, next one. Okay, so in some organism, like the ticks that we have right here, so it undergoes parthenogenesis. Basically, they don't need a male in order to do that. So, the sex act is still happens, but the thing there is they don't need a female or a male or a female to do that one, right? Excuse me. All right, so that is the asexual reproduction. Okay, so we go now to the second type of reproduction called the sexual reproduction. So what is sexual reproduction? Now this is a very complicated type of reproduction in which the individuals needs gametes in order to reproduce. So as we recall, gametes are sex cells, and it is made up of, or there are two kinds of gametes. So we have sperm and egg cell, and the sperm is produced by male organism, and the female organism produce the egg cell. Alright, so this kind of reproduction somehow happened about 2.5 to 3.5 billion years ago by some unicellular organism. Okay, so in such a way, the first unicellular organism some unicellular organism that performs this one is the paramecium. Alright, so the paramecium undergo what they call conjugation. So this particular process is similar to the sexual reproduction. Instead, there's no sperm and egg present, but the nucleus of two paramecium, for example this one, so they have macronuclei. So the macronuclei and then the micronuclei. So this one also have macronuclei and the micronuclei. Yeah. All right. So what we have right here